Hello, it's Pigsy driving in the snow. Be cautious. Yeah, it's really interesting the way the snow's. Don't know what I probably can't see it as much as I can. You will do though. See it pick up. Yeah, just looking at some Brexit stuff, and it gets so boring, isn't it? Hard. You know, these deals, soft deal, hard deal, no deal, and to be honest, it doesn't actually matter at all to any of us normal people. Let's put it that way. Businesses, is it really a big problem? Probably not really. There's a lot of scaremongering, and I was hearing something. It mentioned about the government having been excessively secretive because the media are damaging the country. They're turning around and scaring the crap out of businesses. They're saying if you don't do this, you don't do that, it's going to be the end of the world. And it's just like the Y2K stuff, you know, when people panicked about that, could it get fixed? The problem with internal clocks and doomsday, because it makes money for the news industry. That's what it is. And so they're just spinning it around and around, trying to increase the fear factor. But the only thing is, if they're damaging businesses, like they're putting off businesses investing in the UK, they're costing us money. So should they just be reporting on the facts, not the fiction? And because the deal's taking so long for anything to come out of it, it hasn't happened. It's like they're saying, oh, the Brexit's done this, the Brexit's done that. But it hasn't done anything. It hasn't done anything because nothing's happened. And if businesses are that vulnerable that something that hasn't happened has already affected them, then they're just masking the reality of what was going to happen to them anyway. So basically, it's just a load of lies. You know, if they're going to move their jobs elsewhere, and they can use the excuse the Brexit to lessen the impact if it's just a company or the corporation looking to make more money. And they're likely to move it over to China, maybe in Africa, possibly they might focus, it might be Russia, it could be somewhere else, it could be anywhere really. I mean, I saw today something mentioned about that Guinness is brewed in Nigeria. Some of it's not all in Ireland. So, you know, that just highlights that. It's not the Brexit that's done that. Because corporations are not held landlocked. They're not held by areas. They just move around, do whatever they like. Some sort of traffic lights coming up. Oh dear, so what's going to happen here? So, yeah, a lot of a panic. And is it hiding something else? Is there a recession? And is it giving people a chance to maximise their money and pull things out? I think delaying stuff makes things worse. So if the deal takes 21 months, let's say, or there was a transition period and other things, aren't you giving the other countries, other things, opportunities to take advantage of you? It's like dropping your trousers and just leaving them down. All that's going to happen is it's not going to help us. And there's other things as well to consider. Is this an economic war? Are we at war? And because the idea is that there's always wars that have started from Germany, these world wars. And so the EU went in position, and you have to remember the Nazis were a battle in essence was defeated, and the war may have kind of ended, but maybe it never did. It just turned from a hard war to a soft war, as I'd like to have all these phrases, or you know, this one did have a deal involved. All the countries have to operate in a peaceful, meaningful way. The very people that funded the war have their assets put into place, and they basically take over. I mean, the chiefs take over. That's all that's happened. So they start setting up the new system. I mean, it was always said that basically a darker group of people who associated themselves with a Jewish faith at some level, but also had their dark agenda. So I mean, mainly they could have the religion, but actually believe in a different God or different version of it. Or they say that we're the chosen people, and these other people are just rivals. Because there was always this thing about where the Nazi gold went. It didn't sit in Germany, it went off to Switzerland or something like that. And I think also when the Americans went over, they took this gold. They took assets. That didn't make sense. Why would they do that? Nothing to do with it. So they might say, oh, it's for the Jewish people that have suffered and other thing, or Auschwitz and all these sorts of things. We don't really know what happened there. Only what we've been told has happened there and some witness statements. And then anyone questions the story. The thing is, to go to prison because you simply said, well, I don't think it was actually like that. You question the narrative and you get attacked. The level of severity to react to it suggests that they're hiding something. It's a bit like chasing down Nazi ex-soldiers, and they were like the bank clerk, or they delivered the mail for some Nazi general or something. They haven't done anything much to do with anything, and it's a war. And you have to remember this. The idea of Nazism is it's a vehicle, in the same way that whatever ISIS believes, being an extremist or something, is in essence, there we go, somebody's immortal. It's just a method of delivery. And if you're going to start a war, you're going to want an extreme method of delivery, because it generates a lot of deflection from the source. You're not going to say, well, we want to test out new type of drone now in Syria or something like that, or Afghanistan. You're not going to turn around and say, well, because of this drugs, it's better it got managed by Monsanto in Afghanistan or something, or the CIA would be better at looking after it. Because they won't go into that. That's the other type of politics behind the scenes. It's like, oh yeah, the war was about that. I had this debate before, and well, it wasn't that. I said it's a war on fuel. It seems to be an issue around fuel, not. I think what was the time? Saddam Hussein, and it was somebody who's like a university student, and it's like terror, he's evil, this that. I said you don't know it's like a war around fuel. I mean, they weren't that interested, and suddenly they become really interested. And then it was this weapons of mass destruction, which they don't know what kind of destruction they're involved in, but they're out there. So it's just like this fear-mongering stuff. And this is the same stuff we're getting with the Brexit. Oh, there's going to be a recession, or there's going to be these problems coming. But there's no evidence for that. And it hasn't happened. But while it's being talked about, is it causing a distraction? Other things are going on in the world. The longer they postpone it, or draw people into conflict, the idea is that people will start losing it and then start saying, yeah, the news said it's going to destroy my job, my livelihood, or I'm going to get kicked out of the country, and all these other things that actually haven't been mentioned about. It was very simple. What people voted for was they wanted to come out of the club of the UN, so they didn't want this, the EU I should say, they didn't want to be held under this control grid that we had nothing to do with, we don't really get much information on, and you can see all these countries folding. They were falling into recession, and they were getting sort of set up to be pawns in a warfare, because they would become poverty-stricken, and then there would be a civil uprise, and then they would say, well, the UN-sold peacekeepers have got to go in there, and then they start putting in sort of FEMA things in place and controlling people, ration them, and then people start to die and disappear, and no one really talks about that, and all these other situations will occur. And at the end of the day, it's asset stripping the place, and the place loses its identity, it stops being a country, it ends up being taken over by somebody else, it becomes a corporate asset, it creates a reason to spend more money on warfare that nobody wants. I think there was always a bigger agenda than everyone getting together and all being best friends in Europe, because that never really happened, did it? I mean, it's not an equal playing field. They don't vote for members from the country. We don't say, right, well, would the Prime Minister instantly become, the key member to sit on the council there and so on. They had their own politics in place. And so there's a hell of a lot of drama. It doesn't need to be there. So I'd simply say, look, this is the deal. Afraid you've got to like it or lump it, because this is the one we're willing to go with. And our business isn't with the EU. It's actually, our business is with the countries of Europe, and we open ourselves up to negotiation. You tell us what services you want. You set this, if there's prices and tariffs and stuff like that. You tell us what you want, and then we can turn around and say, well, that's too high, or that's too low, or we can adjust it. But there's an area of negotiation. It happens all the time. I mean, how do salesmen operate? I mean, how do we justify the price of certain computers and things? It's all set up so if it's mass produced, it will be charged at a certain price. If they got plans to bring out a new generation of mobile phones, that would set up the price to look at the life expectancy of technology and stuff like that. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not rocket science, and it doesn't really interest most people. They just want the best service they can, the best price, and just roll with it. And we don't care that much about what companies think of each other. They can just get on with it. Basically the best brand wins. That's how it normally works. Or the cheapest one. It's effective. Like, things are going to come in from China, so what? If people want to buy them, they should be open for that. There shouldn't be this, we've got to put these sanctions in place, or Russia, if you want to try Russia, fine. It's what we call healthy competition. None of this kind of, because so what's happened is that in order to people to protect their assets, they've started to control elements of government. And so the government stops serving the people. People might vote for things, but actually it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, money will push certain policies. And the parties, you get key members in. I mean, if another party comes in, your aim is to either find a corrupt link in there, manipulate it, or push someone into a position of power to manipulate it. And as simple as that, or make a bow to public opinion, or find something dirty on them to control them. They say, well, you're a politician, you're a career politician, we look after you look after us, and that's the deal. So it's kind of this kind of weird mafia type thing going on. And it happens all the time. I'd say it happens all the time. It's just the way of things, really, isn't it? If people are willing to pay for things, it happens. It's not a big issue. So, personally, I wouldn't stress out about Brexit. Just let him get on with it. And all the cross-analysis of things until actually something emerges. But to be honest, I think it's just a bit too soft. Because if we're at war with them, right, so we are begging for freedom, and they say, well, we won't have any other agreements with you, so they'd want to punish us, as that's what they want to do. But they need us, so that's the other issue. It's simple, people vote for something, and that's that. And they try to mask it and dress it up in different ways, and just got to get on with it. We can't do re-voting on stuff. I mean, ideally, right, what should happen is that Brexit should be a quick process, and you go for a period of 5 years or whatever. If it's more in our interest to go join back with the European Union, people could have a vote on that. But why would they want to when nothing changes with it? They still have these austerity measures, countries owe lots of money, and they've got their own little private army to go around, marching around borders, banging on about sanctions, and putting pressure on people, and it's run by banks. It just doesn't make any sense. Otherwise, what we do, they wouldn't talk about loans for countries. I mean, it doesn't make any sense what's going on there. No one's voting on the stuff. It just gets made up behind the scenes with it. So, if it was a different system, so in essence, it's not the UK to blame for it. It's not the people that voted. It's the European Union themselves. If they actually had good intentions in the first place, they've just become more corrupt. And because they're not offering us anything better, they losing us. That's what happens. It's like a relationship, you know. If it turns stale and you lose interest in that, then things will fall apart. You know, what do you put in place to fix it? And if you don't put nothing in it and say you've got to make the effort, we haven't. But oh yeah, you're in the club. I mean, we don't get a better return for our money's worth. We just get lots of threats about you lose all your doctors and drugs would be a problem. And that's another problem. There's so many people on some type of there's so many people on corporate prescribed medication. Okay, and I don't understand it. It's just like loads of people they need drugs. Why? What's wrong with their bodies that they're so wrecked that they're drug dependent? I mean, I understand. Okay, some people maybe they've been designed to live so long, or their lifestyle maybe doesn't cater for them to live in a long time, and they might need something extra in their diet. It should only be short term. There's people on stuff all the time. Well, why can't they seek out the answers in nature themselves? You know, I don't understand people add things to their diet and so on, but it just seems like it's crazy what people are on, and there's all this panic about things. Oh shit! I did miss it, didn't I? There's all this panic about medication and it always I just remember something about medication. But anyway, so I have to sort that out Saturday. And so they just become so dependent on things, and there's the panic about things. They don't have pills at certain times and stuff. You know, the doctor, whatever the doctor says I've got to do, and I've got my dosage, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. So they kind of give up the part of themselves. They just overtrust the system. You know, I think it's not all bad. I think there's actually some good intention in there, but there's also an intention. We've got to make some money as well. You know, I come across people and it's like he's getting treatment for things he doesn't need. It's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You know, like from a carer's point of view, put a lot of creams on him. You can have creams on this chap 3 times a day, and yet his skin is as soft as Snow White. You know, there's nothing wrong with him in that sense. Just put it on anyway, and that's because of the industry. And it's you know, little things like has a problem with his foot, and so therefore needs to go see the doctor about it. But because someone gets labelled vulnerable, they automatically things get put in place for them to do. It's just over the top, really. And I feel sorry for them, because then they get this thing that they got to do this, they got to do that, and you know, everything becomes a very controlled, institutionalised society. So, what are the hopes of the future? I don't know. We need to really be trying to move beyond capitalism. That's the key issue, or finding a better system of capitalism. At the moment, it's all cryptocurrencies and other things in the background, and it doesn't have to connect up to any real wealth. It can just be make believe. So yeah, it doesn't have to be at all. So yeah. Anyway, this is a big sign off, and speak to you soon.